Hello again, you lucky people. Hey, d- only because you are family, no charge for this. On my wall in my living room is that cross, not a crucifix, just a cross, and that plaque. Let me get myself set up here and we'll talk about God and religion and spirituality. I'm getting passable at that. Same boring background. Center it for lighting. Okay. So, let me read the Bible quotes that are on that plaque. There are two of them. I'll say it again. This is Jesus talking. I'll say it again. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. In other words, don't hoard it, give some of it away. And secondly, he said, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? They're up there for a reason. I've thought about those two things over the years quite a bit. If you care to look them up, look them up. Camel and needle, birds of the air. I did, I think I mentioned, but I'll make doubly sure. This is about God and religion, spirituality. I did RCIA with Sherry and Bobby. Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults. Share with Sherry because we wanted her married in the Catholic Church. And I don't know whether I should say she, we, or me. Bobby, because she just wanted to be Catholic. Bobby has turned into a super Catholic, very involved with that little dumpy church in Mead where she lives. I used to lecture at church, do the readings. And I frequently gave you the Halpine finger from the altar. And the Halpine finger was simply this. You look like you're scratching your eye, but you're really giving somebody the finger. So I'd be up there lecturing and give you the finger. I know Sherry was always impressed with that. Nobody ever called me out. Who would? What kind of an a-hole would you have to be to do that? My kind. Roxy and I were members of Holy Family Parish, about 19th and coming. And it's the first Catholic parish I ever belonged to that I felt had a real mission to do something for somebody. And what they did was a small thing, but a huge thing. After 10:30 Mass, a dozen of us would go to the church basement and we would make sandwiches for the homeless and one of our guys would deliver them. So, and Roxy would do it along with me. We really felt at home there. I had come from Wenceslas, and you're obviously a wee bit familiar with that, and it felt like pretty much any West Omaha church. Newer facility, kind of similar architecture in that it wasn't like the downtown parish churches with the arches and all that cool architecture. Sandwiches. We made like 500 freaking sandwiches a week. Then when I hooked up with Cindy, for some odd reason, she wasn't comfortable with the idea of going to Mass with me where Roxy had. So one day we were planning on going to St. John on the Creighton campus, another beautiful old church. And we thought it was a 10 o'clock Mass. First time we'd been there. Well, it was 10:30. So we show up at 9:45. Nobody's there. Check the sign. Oops. So I said, all right, if we gotta wait half an hour, why don't we go to Sacred Heart, to where I had never been, for the choir. Just for the choir, which was famous. My old buddy Mary Kay Mueller actually started their Freedom Choir. So we went there, and when people ask me why I go to Sacred Heart, I always say I went for the choir, I stayed for the missions. And the missions are, we had the usual church parish stuff to keep up. On our ground was something called the Heart Ministry Center, run now by a very dear friend of mine, Mark Dare. In fact, Mark's a good example of why this church is so unusual. Born into a rich banking family, he became a coke addict, a meth addict, and an alcoholic, achieved all of these wonderful accomplishments before he turned 35. Another thing he achieved was 2 years in the Nebraska State Penitentiary for his 7th DUI. It's nice for daddy to have money and be connected. So he got out and he was volunteering at what we call the pantry, the food distribution thing, where people would drive up in their car and throw bags of groceries in the backseat. And they knew full well that he's an ex-con, but an awful lot of the people down there are ex-cons. One moment. There. So he was comfortable with them. They were comfortable with him. It's a church in the middle of a black who are at the Heart Ministry Center are Black. It provides 15 plus different services. They have a day that a doctor comes and does appointments all day. I think they have 2 days now for dentistry. They distribute more food than any food distribution thing in the state of Nebraska, more than the food bank, as an example. And I mean, it just goes on and on. So, Heart Ministry Center is one of those missions. Another, across the street from Sacred Heart Church is Sacred Heart School. And that school, I think, has about 80 kids in it. Nobody white. They are all of color. I have toured that school. It's unbelievable. Those kids and their attitude toward life. Let me think, Omaha Public School System graduates 67% of their students. Our school graduates from high school 98%. And they nearly all go on to college. And the city of Omaha is so behind Sacred Heart and what we're doing over there. There are people all over who provide full ride scholarships for those kids to go to school. Well, about 7 or 8 years ago, we took over 2 other grade schools in disadvantaged neighborhoods. And they came to Cindy and me asking for a small contribution. And Cindy and I gave $5,000 once, and I'll tell that story next. But I had never given any more than $5,000. So we sit down with Father Tom Fangman and with the brand new funding guy. And Tom, very matter-of-factly, asks us for $100,000. It would be a 5-year pledge, paid off equally for that. And I was struck dumb for about 45 minutes. And then I said, Father, that's kind of out of the league of what we've ever done. Let us go home. We'll talk about it. So, Cindy and I go home and I say, I don't know what we spend on travel a year, but I'm real sure it's in the tens of thousands. And I know about what we spend on the average trip. If we took 2 less trips a year, we could do that number and not really feel it all that much. So we decided to do it. Probably 2 years later, I run into that fundraising dude at Panera. Oh, Phil, I haven't seen you in forever. We sit down, start having a cup of coffee, and he goes, hey, right off top, I gotta tell you something. In the fundraising game, you always ask for double what you really want from the people. You're like the first couple that I've damn near ever seen that just said, okay. And I thought, you dumbass. So Sacred Heart, give money. When Cindy and I were brand new to the parish, they were raising $3 million to refurbish, remodel this 108-year-old church. And we knew nothing more than that, but I think the second time we went there, we pledged $5,000 toward the $3 million. Well, a couple of months later, they're having a donors thank you party. And what do you know? Cindy and I get invited. So we're a little curious because we gave some money, but it wasn't a big deal. The party is at the home of the Basham family, Basham. And Holland Basham is this massive architecture firm in Omaha. We drive up to this house, and it's one of those driveways that's lit on both sides, so a rather striking entrance. The house is up on a hill, lit like a prison yard, so you can't miss it. We go in there, and I'm looking around. I don't know a single person other than Father Tom. And it comes that time, and he gathers this all in one of the Basham's 37 rooms of 1,000 square feet or more. And he starts going around and thanking people individually. And he says, Joe Blow, I can't think of the name, owned all the Burger Kings around town and much more. We really have to thank you. You got this thing kicked off. You pledged $500,000. Oh. And Cindy and I are kind of side-eyeing each other. What in the... Then he says, and then you next 9 families, what a debt of gratitude I owe you. You each gave $100,000. So before we made our first call on anybody outside of this tight little group, we had about $1.5 million of our $3 million raised. Now Cindy and I are thinking, if I can read her mind clearly, why are we here? This is going to be the most embarrassing thing ever. So he gets around to us and he says, and here are a couple of our brand new parishioners, Phil Dawson, Cindy Hole. Thank you so much for joining our parish and joining us tonight. And that's all he said. And we felt like, we dodged a bullet. We got married in Sacred Heart Church, and during his homily, Father Tom told the story of why we got invited to that party. And he said, guys, I was just so touched. You'd known our church for a week and you made your pledge. And the idea wasn't that it was the biggest pledge. It's that it was a substantial number for most people, and you did it out of blind faith. And I went, oh, okay, I get that. Might have been nice to know that, but okay. When Adam died in 2013, he had gone through a short period of time where he was homeless, and he was living in his car. And I was trying to come up with something I could give to Sacred Heart to honor him. And I asked them and told them the story, and they said, well, you know what we would die for is a new van to deliver food from the pantry to people who can't get around. So I bought them a van, and they wrapped it a la Lori's car with photos of half a dozen of the kids, huge photos, and just their head or their whole body or whatever. Cool. One other contribution thing, I pledged $50,000 to that school system, now 3 schools, in 2020, and I'm writing this dude as of December of 2022, and I'm like 61% of the way there. Math. So, in the last 10 years, I've spent about $250,000 on that church. I say that not to brag so much so much as to tie back into the plaque, the camel, and the needle. I also am just known as the guy who gets the small things. We have what we call a festival every summer. It's just an outdoor gathering of the parish and the neighborhood and friends. I buy all the non-alcoholic drinks for that every year. People on the organizing committee go nuts about that every stinking year. And I've told them, year 2 when I was in that meeting, they all went crazy, and I said, folks, that costs almost nothing. You're looking at 1,000 drinks is what I would get, and they're 25 cents each, $250, and they're just going ape. Well, they continue to go ape. Cindy used to put together baskets for the silent auction. When I'm not all that Catholic, so I found out that there is one Sunday Mass per year that the priest is supposed to be in a rose-colored chasuble. And the chasuble is the thing you see on the outside of his vestments. So we didn't have one. I thought that was weird. Got him one. Again, not a big thing. Probably $200. But it was, oh my God, Phil. I get it. All right, and I will close with this. Speaking of Sacred Heart, Sacred Heart is the only Catholic parish in Omaha that has kind of a wink-wink deal with the Archbishop about gay people. Catholic Church doesn't care for gay people. Maybe I shouldn't say that so much as the gayness. And we don't give a crap. So gay couples are welcome at Sacred Heart and have been for a heck of a long time. Father Tom, before he was replaced by Father Dave 5 years ago, had a rainbow vestment. It's nuts. So, very welcoming place. And before Mass every Sunday, we have this little sheet that says, "Welcome to Sacred Heart." Christmas Day at 8:15, a couple days ago, I read this. And I had some okay food with horrible service at B-Dubs last night with Kari. And I told her, I'm going to read just a little something for you the way people read, most everybody. And then I'm going to read it the way I read it on Sunday. Welcome to Sacred Heart. All are welcome here. We extend a special welcome to people who are single, married, divorced, straight, LGBTQ, wealthy, comfortable, or materially poor. We welcome people of all races and cultures, indigenous and non-indigenous folks alike. And normally it goes on at about that pace and tone, and the same is true when people lecture. It's pretty monotone. So, when I did it Sunday, it went more like this. Good morning, Sacred Heart! Welcome to Christmas. And welcome to Sacred Heart. All are welcome here. We extend a special welcome to people who are single, married, divorced, straight, LGBTQ, wealthy, comfortable, or materially poor. We welcome people of all races and cultures, indigenous and non-indigenous folks alike. We welcome crying newborns, excited toddlers, and teenagers who are growing up too fast. We welcome young adults and the young at heart. We welcome individuals with differing abilities, those of all body types, all genders, and persons with unique conditions. We welcome soccer dads, football moms, starving artists, tree huggers, latte sippers, craft beer drinkers, vegetarians, and junk food eaters. We welcome those who drive a pickup truck and those who drive a Prius. We welcome those with addictions and those working through recovery. We welcome you if you are down in the dumps and in need of a shoulder to lean on. If you are a traditional Catholic, or if you don't like organized religion, we've got room for everyone. We welcome you if you're just browsing, just woke up, or just got out of jail. We don't care if you come every week. If you only come when Grandma is in town, if you haven't been here since little Joey's baptism, or have never been in a church at all. We welcome those physically present and those joining us online. We welcome those who are inked, pierced, or both. We welcome those who are liberal, conservative, or middle of the road. We offer a special welcome to those who could use a prayer. right now. Those with full hearts, those who feel empty, those who's had religion shoved down their throats as kids, or those who got lost in traffic and wound up here. We welcome tourists, seekers, doubters, bleeding hearts, and most importantly, we welcome you.